Here at the beginning of my show, you can't help but have your head bob a little bit. It's just something about the music that Kyle selected to start this show. And I often look over at other guests, and they're doing the same thing. But welcome to the Ricky Mathews Show, where we celebrate so many amazing people who are making this place such a great place to live, work, and play. I often share things that my friend Frank Willem posts. Frank is an incredibly successful entrepreneur that was able to sell his company and retire young, and he's helping his daughter do some amazing things. And in fact, we'll have her on the show soon and talk more about what they're all about. But he posted this the other day, and I thought it was good. People can really relate to it. And here's what he posted. If at first you don't succeed, you'll get a lot of free advice from folks who didn't succeed either. I just think that is I think that's true, but I like to believe that if at first you don't succeed, try again. Because that's at the end of the day, you're going to make some mistakes, and you're going to learn from those mistakes, and you're going to refine your goals, and you're going to get on with the program. I want to share one other before we move to our guest. In fact, I was talking to our guest about this particular quote, and my thought was that Walter Payton, man, what an incredible career he had in the NFL. And of course, he got so sick as he in the lead up to his death. But had he lived, he would have celebrated, I think, around a 70th birthday in July, if he had lived. But here's one that he said. Here's a quote that he said, and what my guest and I were talking about was that had he lived in the social media world, it's probably incredible the impact that he would have had on so many people. He had a great impact on people anyway. But he was one of those great Mississippians, that is for sure. But here's what he said: when you're good at something, you'll tell everyone. When you're great at something, they'll tell you. Boy, I love that one. That is so true. You probably know some people that applies to. And it's not terrible to tell people, but there's something about greatness. And of course, Walter Payton, we knew him as greatness. You go out and lead by example and do great work, and it has a way of sort of telling you're living by example, and you're telling people through your actions what you believe in, and you inspire them through your actions. And certainly Walter Payton was that kind of a leader, man. That is for sure. And what a great inspiration he was. Okay, so let's move to my next guest, or my first guest today, which is someone who was on the show about a week and a half ago. Someone I really enjoy visiting with because he's a One Coast recipient. And it's Dr. Cedric Bradley. As a PhD, he's the vice president of the Harrison County campus. He has other responsibilities outside of that specific campus as well here in coastal Mississippi. But I wanted to invite him back and just have a broader, more, and in some respects, deeper conversation about the work of Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College here in coastal Mississippi. But without any further ado, let me welcome my friend Cedric Bradley back to the conversation. How you doing, Cedric?
Hey, doing great, Ricky. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to get back on your show. Really looking forward to the conversation this morning.
Listen, I really enjoyed the conversation, learning more about where you come from, the influence of your family on you to pursue education. The fact that, I've often said, somebody said, what kind of degree should I get? And they were looking towards sort of a liberal arts degree. And I would say, you know what? Get a degree in English. Do something like that, because if you learn to communicate, you can usually transition that into learning to do just about anything. But that's sort of your story. You understood that education was going to be a big part of what is going to make. That your education was going to be a big part of what made you successful, and there's been really no looking back. It was a great opportunity to tell your story, and I really appreciate you spending time with me.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that as well, and I've enjoyed listening to the stories of the other One Coast recipients, because you get a chance to learn something from everybody, and everybody has their own unique story of how they got to where they are today, and all the stories are so inspiring also.
Yeah. What's interesting, I had the opportunity when we post at both the SuperTalk Gulf Coast website or Facebook page, and also at the Ricky Mathews Facebook page, I had the opportunity to really dive into the numbers and see, not everybody literally engages. In other words, they don't comment on everything, but you get a chance to see the views. And I'll get private messages from people that have something specific that they want to point out to me that they were inspired by in the conversation. I get those notes all the time. I had one. I got a note the other day, or someone posted at the site. In fact, it was Dennis Burke, who retired from People's Bank, and during one of the One Coast Award conversations, she actually gave Dennis credit for sort of inspiring her to be involved in the community, and he talked about how that touched him. And of course, Dennis's wife also weighed in. Both of them terrific people. But they do touch people. When you get a chance to have these conversations with people who are working in the community, everyone has their story. Gosh, do people have their stories? Yep. That's one of the reasons why at the beginning of Coast View, when it was Coast View and not the Ricky Mathews Show over 3 years ago now, I focused on the George Schlogels and the Jerry St. Pays and the Roland Weeks and the so many people. You'll leave people out if you start trying to name them all. But I call them the stalwart leaders, and inside their stories, inside their leadership stories, both in their businesses and their commitment to the community, there's so much to learn. But what the One Coast Award tells us is you don't have to be a stalwart leader. In other words, one of the most significant leaders in the Coast history, to have a story that inspires people, because you're doing something in your corner of the world that is powerful and important and makes a difference, and people can learn from that. And the accumulation of these stories, 5 days a week, sometimes two people a day, over the course of 3 years, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of views. That's just on the Facebook page. It's not counting YouTube and the extension of the show that goes to podcast platforms and what we're doing on the daily radio show. As long as we continue to get the feedback that people are inspired by people like you, Cedric, I'll continue to do this show in retirement. It's been a thrill for me to be able to do it. And you're not looking for the recognition, but you get what I said when you and I talked, and that is that when we can hold you up as an example, others are going to be inspired. When we can use your leadership at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College to have a detailed discussion about Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, that's good for Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. That's good for coastal Mississippi. That's good for the state. So all these dots connect, and it's a terrific opportunity for me to be able to have these conversations. It's been so well received. It really has. Okay, so for people who did not hear our conversation, let's come back and let's lay a little bit of groundwork first. So you are the vice president of the Harrison County campus. There are extensions of that campus, and we want to talk about that. So let's let people know what it is you do these days.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Ricky. I serve as the vice president for the Harrison County campus. Yeah, obviously, we know that is located right here in the heart of Harrison County, right here on the Biloxi Gulfport city line. I often tell people that when I walk across the street to our hospitality center, I'm in Biloxi, but when I go back across the street, I'm in Gulfport. And so that's my day-to-day work there, serving as vice president of the Harrison County campus. But Gulf Coast Community College, we have actually 11 locations now, and 2 of those locations, we have a center at Keesler and we have a center at the CB base, where we're able to offer courses at both of those locations for service men and women, as well as civilians also, because it gives them an opportunity to be able to take classes without having to actually leave the base. But not only for the active duty individuals, but also for their family, their spouses. And so their spouses may want to take classes without having to leave the bases as well. So we have that opportunity there at both of our bases here in Harrison County.
How many students do you have?
For at the basis, or
No, just overall for the area that you're responsible.
We actually serve about over 20,000 students in both the credit world and the non-credit world, Ricky. So we actually serve more students in non-credit than we do on the credit side of the house. So.
Yeah, that's what I have often said. That and the way I talk about it is that over 50% of the students now at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College are in non-traditional education. They're not trying to get a 2-year degree, and they're not trying to do the 2+2 where they end up going on to a 4-year university. They're learning a trade. It might be automotive technology, it might be HVAC, it might be auto collision, it might be cybersecurity, it might be diesel mechanic. I mean, Lord, there's a lot of possibilities. We're actually going to break some of that down here shortly. When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with my friend Dr. Cedric Bradley, who's the Vice President of the Harrison County campus for the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. We'll see you after this break. Good morning, and hope you're having a great day. I'm enjoying my conversation with Dr. Cedric Bradley, who is the Vice President of the Harrison County campus. And what I was doing, I was going to look at my Fitbit watch real quick and see that I did 5.7 miles this morning walking. And I do that a lot. You know that if you're a regular listener. I walk a lot, and I try to stay in shape, work out weights 2 or 3 days a week, and do all the things that you're supposed to do to try to take care of yourself. And I've done it for like more than 40 years, which is amazing to me to think that it's been going on that long. But while I was walking, I was thinking about something. Thinking about, there's always this noise in the political spectrum, and this is not a political show, but there's a lot of division in the world, and the polarized ends often say, decide what the agenda is going to be. When most of us, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, most of us, it's somewhere in the middle. We're moderates. We're somewhere in the middle. One of the things that frustrates me is in the midst of all that sort of especially in a political season, we tend to get on those issues that are not really about solving a problem. And you can pick the issue, but I'm not trying to drag culture wars and things like that into the conversation. But I look at that as sort of this on the surface, you've got these polarized ends that are trying to decide for us what we should be debating about and talking about. When the rest of us are working in the trenches every day to try to bring our state forward, and a great example of that, I think an excellent example of that, and I know this to my core because I'm a proud member of the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College Hall of Fame. At a time when I was changing my major from pre-med to business, Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College played an incredibly important role in my life. And I went on to get my degree and went on to get a master's. I did an internship at the Sun Herald along the way, and the rest is history. But if you look at what's happening in the trenches of coastal Mississippi, you look at, for example, Mary Graham and the conversations I've had with her, what you see is that they're incredibly strategically focused, which is to say that their strategy plan, their strategic plan is never set in stone. It's literally a living document, and they're constantly bringing inputs into it. And when something like the pandemic happens, they've got a framework to introduce the challenges brought to this college as a result of something like the pandemic, and they can then make adjustments in their plan and they move forward. It's part of what they do. They're listening to business and industry. They're paying attention to what other communities are doing across the United States. They're very in tune with best practices across the United States. I can't say enough good things about this team, because what it leads to is having Mississippi become a leader in things like job development and making adjustments to the ever-changing technical side of things on the business side. They're turning on a dime, and a lot of times you don't get a chance to hear that story or focus on that story, how people are working together to make Gulf Coast Community College one of the most important community colleges in the entire United States. And listen, I know that because I've done my homework. I understand what's happening. But Cedric, when I talk about that, and with the knowledge that I've gained in my conversation with Mary Graham and others over many years, that is as real gets, isn't it?
You are 100% spot on there, Ricky, because what I always like to say is that it's important for us to stay relevant. And the best way to stay relevant is that you have to listen to your businesses. You have to listen to the industry. You have to see what's going on across the nation, because what you don't want to happen, you think about Blockbuster, the movie rental. You had Blockbuster, it was doing its thing, and then Netflix came along and Blockbuster wasn't relevant anymore. So you have to make sure that you stay relevant, and the best way to do that is making sure that you are listening to your businesses and your industry and the community, making sure that you're staying in tune with what their needs are. I often tell people I say what we do here at Gulf Coast Community College is that we train and educate students, we listen to our business and industry, and then after we've heard what our business and industry are telling us, we retrain our students. And with all of our career and technical programs, we have advisory councils. Those advisory councils are made up of industry professionals, and they're telling us what they need us to do to make sure when they hire our students are prepared and can come into their organizations and be successful.
It is so important, and it is proven itself time and time again, because business and industry, as a result, are getting trained employees as a result of it. And you've blazed this trail that has put Mississippi on the map. And one of the cool things about the conversation you and I had the other day is that you were making the point that when you go to these meetings, and I think we all feel this burden when we go to these meetings to sort of help people overcome whatever preconceived notions they have about Mississippi. And believe me, man, we always have room to improve. Every state has room to improve, but we're leading the way. And when you have the opportunity to go outside of Mississippi and people become really aware of how this sort of strategic focus and the strategic framework has worked within the guise of establishing Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College as this organization that can turn on a dime, that's not just focused on getting people to the next level of college, but it's helping people get to the next level of success in their lives. And it makes a difference, man. I mean, people, what they say of us, when they're doing their best practice analysis, what they see in us, and I say us, Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, something I'm very proud of. They see an organization that's leading the way, and you share that, don't you?
Yep, I do. And a perfect example of that, about a year ago, we actually hosted the National Security Agency, Ricky, and this is the agency that is based in D.C., because what that agency saw, they saw what we were doing here at Gulf Coast Community College, particularly in cybersecurity. And Gulf Coast Community College, we were one of the first two institutions in Mississippi to be recognized by the National Security Agency as what's called a Center of Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense. And so you think about everything related to cybersecurity, not only your big organizations, but even your smaller nonprofits. They need to make sure that they have individuals who can come in and try to prevent some type of cyber attack from happening in their organization. And so the NSA, they saw what we were doing here at Gulf Coast Community College, and they actually asked us to host the National Security Agency's big conference. And they had government agencies and everybody from D.C., from throughout the nation, right here at Gulf Coast Community College. So,
you think about it. Again, cybersecurity is a really good example of how forming partnerships and how listening to what your partners say to you we're not talking about just offering a few classes in cybersecurity. You can sort of boil this down a little bit even deeper than you have up to this point. But when you think about Keesler Air Force Base and the highly technical trainings that's happening there, and then you think about Stennis Space Center and the blue chip industries, many of them very highly technical. Some of the most important computers in the world are there. You think about Ingalls and Chevron, this incredible refinery that's strategically important to America right here in Jackson County. And then no one will argue the role that Ingalls is playing in the defense of this nation and freedom around this world. When you think about those partnerships and what is done to evolve the conversations around cybersecurity, it's significant, isn't it?
It's huge. It really is. Keesler, for example, Keesler Air Force Base, they train over 6,000 individuals a year in cyber. And so we're part of a partnership with Keesler, Mississippi State University, and several other federal, state, and local agencies in what's called the Mississippi Cyber Initiative. And what we have here on the campus is what's called the Mississippi Cyber Center. And in the Mississippi Cyber Center, it's led by an individual who works with Mississippi State University. But agencies are able to come in and talk about best practices related to cybersecurity. In addition to that, it has what's called a digital forensics lab, and it's actually hosted or is by the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, in which the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation has their digital forensics lab right here on the Harrison County campus. And if someone commits a crime and they have to get into that phone or something like that, and the digital forensics, they're able to do that right here on the campus.
We'll actually pick it up from there, but you for the listeners, you get the sense that we're not just talking about a 2+2 program anymore, offering sort of the first 2 years of college, and we're gonna do good doing that. It is very significant. There are a lot of layers to this onion when you start getting into highly sophisticated technical training, and we'll get into more of this when we get on the other side with Cedric Bradley, who's the Vice President of the Harrison County campus for Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show. We're talking with my friend, Dr. Cedric Bradley. He's a PhD. He's Vice President of the Harrison County campus for Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. When we went to break, though, we were putting layers on this onion. You know, the sort of the core of it is that there was a decision along the way to take technical training at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College and take that to a whole new level, to figure out, and working with partners, and these are the industry and business partners all along coastal Mississippi, and listen to them and say, okay, here are the kind of programs we need to develop. The programs we develop need to be relevant to the job market. Where are we having challenges, for example, in hiring skilled people? And Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College then is working to sort of find the kind of students that would be good fits for those programs and developing programs around that. And then graduating skilled technical students are no longer students, but graduates who then can take some of these positions. There's some great examples, incidentally, some highly sophisticated diesel mechanic jobs that pay six figures. I mean, we're not talking about coming out making $10 an hour. These are really, really, in fact, that one of the reasons why Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College has more than 50% in non-traditional, these technical training programs now than traditional, is because people can go to these programs and come out making significant amount of money. And if they can go into a four-year university and maybe have an opportunity to do that, but not everyone who goes off to four-year university really needs to do that. I mean, what they really should do is look into these technical training programs. But when we went to break, we were talking about cybersecurity and the way that has evolved into the center on the campus and how they're involved in really, really detailed cyber forensics and all of that. But when you're hosting real life stuff, I mean, this is rubber hits the road stuff to keep this state safe and keep businesses safe. When you host that, it is like real world experience right there on the campus, and there's no trade-off for that, is there?
No, and what you said is so accurate, Ricky, because it's hands-on training that our students have an opportunity to get. For example, with the digital forensics lab, our students who are in cybersecurity, our students who are in criminal justice, those students can actually go through a background check and work with Mississippi Bureau of Investigation and get that experience of being in a digital forensics lab while they are working on their associate's degree here at Gulf Coast. We actually just formed a new partnership as well with the Mississippi Highway Patrol. Law enforcement agencies, they're struggling with staffing like many industries and individuals are. But if there is one agency that you don't want to have to struggle with staffing, that's your law enforcement. And so Mississippi Highway Patrol, they came to us with an opportunity for a partnership. And with this partnership, our students who are in our criminal justice program, those students can actually go through what's called the core program with the Highway Patrol. It's called the Candidates on Rapid Entry. And so as those students go through our program, they will also work alongside a trooper during this time, and they'll get PT training as well as learn other knowledge about law enforcement. And once they graduate from Gulf Coast and they complete the core program, they'll have guaranteed acceptance into trooper school. So it's really helping. It's helping those individuals to get great jobs, but it's also helping us. It's also helping the state as well as far as trying to fill that void that they have with the troopers.
And what's so powerful about that, when people tend to think of the Mississippi Department of Public Safety, which Sean Tyndall, I think, is doing an incredibly good job of sort of saying grace over. They often do think just of the Highway Patrol, but what they don't realize is that it's the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics, it's the driver's license services, it's Homeland Security, it's the training academy, it's the medical examiner's office, it's Crime Stoppers. I know that I'm missing some, but it's got all these different pieces, and I've always been intrigued by the role that Sean plays as a leader over all of that. So here you are, you're working on trying to figure out how you can aid the Highway Patrol group with getting trained people who are ready to sort of hit the ground running. And that's a complicated job these days. I talk about law enforcement on this show all the time, that they're much more selected than they ever were before. And there's so much work around de-escalation, and there's so much work on understanding, your rights and the laws of others, et cetera. It's a very complicated job. But when you had that partnership with Sean Tyndall's office, and you're working on something like the Highway Patrol, what will happen is it's naturally going to spill over into these other areas that he's responsible for. So you see that over and over again. You work with Ingalls on something else pops up. You work with them to address that. You meet other people, that brings you to another possibility. It's a very symbiotic kind of relationship, isn't it?
It really is, because a lot of these, going back to cybersecurity, for instance, when you think about cybersecurity, what many people don't realize is that there are so many other programs that are directly related to cybersecurity, coding technology, computer programming, even HVAC, Ricky, for instance, that has cybersecurity components to it. So we actually had a grant from the National Science Foundation in which we were training our students in what's called the Internet of Things. And so basically, our students who are in HVAC, who are in cybersecurity, who are in computer programming, who are in construction maintenance, those students were able to look at the way that all those components come together. Because if I'm an HVAC technician and I'm going in to install a smart thermostat, I need to know what are the cybersecurity issues that may be related to this smart thermostat that I'm installing in someone's home. And so we had a grant that students were actually able to get a certificate so they can learn about all those different components, even if they're in a different major. all those components actually relate to one another.
It's incredible. I can't help but think back at the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College that existed when I was there in the 1980s, which was terrific, incidentally. I mean, I was thinking this morning about, I came across a quote from Shakespeare, and my teacher there was so good that so many, I still in my head from back in those days, I can recall specific phrases or for specific excerpts that she made me memorize. And, I could impress you with how I can say those words today because they just stuck in my brain. But the thing is that it's just a terrific school that's really focused on preparation. And what's happened is this evolution over time has made it adaptable in this way. And that's why I say you got all this division that's up here in the world and we're all having this, but man, the real people are in the trenches making a darn difference every single day, and they don't care about the politics or anything. They're just helping people succeed. And Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College has been that entity, and it is incredible to hear it. I mean, just listening to you talk, Cedric, as we mentioned cybersecurity, and next thing you know, you're talking about very sophisticated what am I trying to say? Forensic. Infringing is what the word that came to my mind. But forensic. What am I trying to say? Forensic.
Yes,
Gosh,
yeah.
Man, I started to do it again. But you think about how our conversation evolved around all of that, and how you guys have laid a stake down to make a difference and to be a national leader. It's incredible, but it's not just there. I mean, look, for example, you look at the automotive technology arena, what's happened there. I mean, we've gone from having carburetors to having, really sophisticated digital engines. And now you have the evolution of EV, but you guys, you have to be able to turn on the dime and bring those new technologies into your automotive technology training programs. There's no rest for the weary in staying up on all that, is there?
No, not at all. And, you think about automobiles and vehicles of today, they have so many electrical components to them, where, 20 years ago, I could get underneath a car and change the oil, but, it's a lot more complicated now. And actually, a couple of days ago, we actually had a automotive open house. And what we did was we invited potential students, current students who are looking to major in automotive technology. And we also had car dealerships from throughout the Gulf Coast. And what this open house was, it gave students an opportunity to see what's going on in our automotive program, but it also gave them an opportunity to talk with the car dealerships, because what we're getting ready to do now, Ricky, is that we're changing up our automotive program, staying relevant to what the industry needs are. And the first semester, students are in automotive. They're going to go 4 days a week like they normally have done. But during their second and third semesters, they're going to come to class 2 days a week, and they're going to go and work at the dealerships for 3 days a week. And so they're going to be able to work with the dealerships where they can actually get paid internships, but the dealerships are actually able to kind of grow their own future employees by using those students as interns.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Look, every little road we go down, we can go deep on the way that Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College has adapted strategically to meet the needs of business and industry here in coastal Mississippi. Hey, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Cedric Bradley for the final segment. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to really drill down on one of the great stories in Mississippi, one of the great best practices in Mississippi that the nation has really paid attention to. So we were talking. I mean, first of all, Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College is really on sort of the headlines for the nation when it comes to what we're doing with career and technical training. And then you start to zero in even deeper, and you have this conversation around cybersecurity, and you start to understand that we're laying the groundwork there. And then we get into this discussion about automotive technology, and then you start to see the relationship between auto dealers and the school, and creating these internships and so on. I mean, we could just keep breaking it down. The HVAC area is very significant. Always has been a big part of what you guys have done. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, Ricky, think about it. Being in South Mississippi, can you imagine not having HVAC technicians? And so our HVAC program is actually a one-year program. And so students can actually come, finish that degree in 1 year, and go out and actually get family sustaining wages once they complete that degree. And so we have several programs that what we consider to be one-year programs. So HVAC, auto collision, electrical technology. We have a new program called Live Entertainment Technology. And what that program does is actually allow students to understand what it takes to put on a show. So they're learning about lighting, they're learning about sound, they're learning all of those things. If there's a concert at a coliseum or a church or what have you, they're learning about how to do those things related to performances. And that's a one-year program as well. And that program, Live Entertainment Technology, is actually a free program for students right now. So students can actually come and take that program at no cost. It's what we consider a no-cost program here at the institution.
I love that idea. Listen, I had the opportunity to spend time with Matt over at the Mississippi Gulf Coast Coliseum and Convention Center, Mac McDonald, who's the executive director there. And the judge, when the judge came to town, so he invited me over. I spent the day with him, sort of to see behind the scenes this very sophisticated infrastructure that he invested in during the pandemic that enabled them to get the bigger touring artists that need the ability to be able to bring this unbelievable equipment in. I mean, sometimes it could be 6 or 7 or 8, 18-wheelers. And what you have is in this infrastructure that it now exists at the Coliseum, the ability to bring those wires down, connect everything together, lift everything back up again. I'm not saying it correctly, but I saw it with my own eyes. I see what is necessary. And then you add to that the fact that you guys have this program that you recently opened up a new performing arts center that's already, I mean, this thing is a world-class facility, isn't it?
Yes, we're super proud of it. It's been a great venue, not only for the college, but for the community as well. We still have a great partnership with Gulf Coast Symphony Orchestra. Our Performing Arts Center is their home. About a week and a half ago, we were able to bring in Chapel Hart, Mississippi's own Chapel Hart, and they had a great show, great performance. Probably about 1,000 people were in attendance, and it just continues to grow. We continue to look for things that are going to be beneficial to the community, Ricky.
Yeah, I love that Chapel Hart came in. I've had them on this show. And I had them just before they were on America's Got Talent. And so when you do a search on Chapel Hart, what came up is the YouTube conversation that the three of them had with me. And it's been viewed tens of thousands of times because I had just done the interview, so it was hot on YouTube, and people saw them on the show and were very interested in them, so they went to look. But I predicted, the fact that they write all their own music, they're out doing this independent tour right now. They're playing again at the Grand Ole Opry. They've been there multiple times. Their music is incredible. It has such a wonderful soul to it because they come from Poplarville, and now they live in New Orleans, but they've got that pure country soul in their music. And it was great to see them be able to stop by here and do a show there and see their family and friends, before they got back on the road again. But man, they've been burning the pavement, haven't they?
They have. And they, I think what's so special about them is that they truly love Mississippi. And you see that throughout their music and throughout their performances is that they have a true love for Mississippi, and that's special.
I introduced him to Steve Azar, who wrote the new state song for Mississippi, One Mississippi, and he immediately included them in the official video for the song One Mississippi, where it starts out with Morgan Freeman, and it has all the greats that are alive still in Mississippi. So their voices in that official video now. So I was so happy for that. But anyway, hey, listen, we could continue on. We're out of time for the day, but we will get back together soon, and we will continue the conversation. Stay in touch with us. Let us know if you've got something important you want to talk about. We'd love to have you back, Cedric.
Hey, sounds great, Ricky. Thank you so much for having me on today.
You bet. This has been Cedric Bradley from Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, and a good friend. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day, and thanks for joining us.